Kandurwan is a part of two words. Kandur means baker in Kashmiri, and Van means the shop.
Okay.
So it's a baker's shop.
Baker shop.
And it's found in almost every nook and cranny of Kashmir. And they have been a part of Kashmir for centuries now. I have lived my entire life in Kashmir, and being interested in filmmaking and having studied filmmaking, what used to bother me the most is the kind of picture that is portrayed of Kashmir, and that used to bother me because there's only this one perspective, and there is only this one narrative that is out there, and this whole narrative of victimization that happens, I understand where it comes from, but I also wanted that there should be something else as well, the life that people lead there. And I wanted to capture that life, and I also wanted it to be relatable to audiences. So therefore, I decided it to be about food, because that is something that everyone can relate to. And I decided to do this because these are like the centers of culture for us, because they have been part of our history and part of our culture for so long, and they're all there. If, no matter which place you go to, Kandurwan is something you will always find in every street. And I wanted to capture it because most of the people don't even know what's outside of the turmoil, what's outside of the conflict. So I wanted to capture that basically. For Kandurvan, the shops, because culturally speaking, Kashmiris don't bake their own breads. They don't make their own breads because the staple is rice. So for breads, everyone goes to Kandurvan. Okay. What happens is that when you go for the morning prayers, right after that you go to the Kandurvan to bring bread home. And it's very cheap and it's very affordable for everyone, so everyone can go and buy it. What happens is that even if during the shutdown or during the strikes, during the turmoil, all the shops will be closed, Kandarwans will not be, because they are not your conventional shops. And therefore, this also becomes a place where people all come together. There is a time, right? The namaz, when the namaz ends, everyone is out at the same time. Everyone is buying the bread at the same time. So everyone just gathers there and talks. So it becomes this a space for a community to interact with each other when they otherwise cannot. And what happens now is that I feel like you would expect something so traditional to be losing value in this day and age, but it's not. It's also, I think, a result of the turmoil that people are holding on to whatever they relate to, whatever they find their identity in. And this food and Kandurwan is that symbol for them, and they hold on to it a lot. If you see, there are modern bakeries in Kashmir, but people don't prefer them that much. They prefer these breads, they prefer this food, they prefer these places to buy their bread from, because they see everything that they don't know of as an invasion to themselves, because their identity, I feel, is constantly so threatened that they just want to hold on to something strong. And I think that Kandurvan as an institution is what provides it for them. It was a very different experience because we had also shot one docu before it, which released later. And when we were shooting that, we were facing a lot of resistance from the community to be shot in that way, in a form of celebration, because that is also something we wanted to capture. But it was a different experience with Kandurvan because the bakers were so welcoming, like they always are, not just with their own people, but when people from outside, like the tourists come, they're very welcoming, and they were so with us as well. And they were so eager to share their story because they don't get to. Because whenever someone comes to capture anything in Kashmir, it's about either the turmoil or the what's missing, or the death and the violence. But finally, like, they were being recorded, and they had a chance to share their story, and it was so overwhelming. And then we realized that we don't need like a voiceover for the film. They were speaking very eloquently and in a very articulate way their own story, and it was so amazing because these people had been baking bread for centuries. Like, they were generational bakers. Their fathers had done it, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers. So they had so many stories, like stories of the Maharaja of Kashmir. They had the stories of all the political families of Kashmir, and they had been there to witness all of it. And from a very different perspective, that is of food. And it was quite exciting for me because it wasn't a sob story, you know, because these people, I asked them, because, you know, in a documentary you usually look for something, you know, what is sad, you know, what have you lost. But when I asked them something like that, they were like, oh, we're doing great. We're absolutely in the best place ever. Like, we are able to support we're able to support ourselves, we're able to support our family, the demand is higher than ever, and we feel really content doing this because there's so much meaning to it, because our fathers used to do it. So we feel like we're carrying forward a tradition, a culture of our own, and it was just exciting to be amongst them. It's not just making films, but any form of art. It has this very magical and this very spiritual power of healing you, not just the people who experience art, but also for the people who create it. Because this act of creation that happens from pain, it's very powerful. It just makes you feel like, sometimes when you do anything, whether you write because of pain, whether you make films because of pain, what you're going through, when you see something beautiful created out of it, you realize that it wasn't for nothing. At least you created something that's beautiful. At least you created something that can help someone. You know, even just evoke a little feeling of happiness, even just make them happy, like for a second. And that in itself, that act of creation, is something that is very uplifting, that is very reassuring. Because if you feel pain in a vacuum, it can lead to despair. And that is something that any act of creation, any art can save you from. So I think that is what films do, that is what any art does. It saves you from despair. That's my experience.